Welcome, everyone. I've turned on the recording. Welcome to an Out to Lunch webinar brought to you by the Earth Science Information Partners Education Committee. I am Carla McAuliffe, and I'm here just to introduce our speaker and support you all. We are recording this meeting, so if you don't want your face recorded, you can turn it off. Otherwise, I'm not sure exactly how whether you'll appear in the final recording. Usually it's just the presenter, so I don't know, that's probably my fault. Anyway, welcome, and we're very happy to have you. Today's talk is inspired by my trying to bring you some of the wonderful sessions that occurred at the National Science Teachers Association, in case you weren't able to go in April, and also to continue to bring you excellent resources for earth and environmental science education. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lauren Brasi from the American Geosciences Institute. I'll let Lauren introduce herself and get started sharing this resource. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Carla. Thanks for having me today. Thank you guys for joining. As Carla mentioned, I'm Lauren Brasi with the American Geosciences Institute. I'm one of our education specialists. I spent 5 years in the classroom teaching chemistry and physical science and astronomy, and then went and got my master's at Case Western Reserve University in planetary science. I studied impact debris. I worked with the EPA Office of Research and Development for a couple of years doing hydrology and field work on mining remediation before joining AGI. So a wide variety of sciences are in my background. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about a valuable resource called Web Soil Survey, which is operated by one of AGI's partners, which is the Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS. AGI, we've been collaborating with NRCS for a few years now. We're aiming to raise awareness about the significance of soils, and our objective is to familiarize teachers and students with soils, their critical role in communities, and also the diverse career opportunities in soil-related fields. And through this partnership, we've developed a lot of resources that are all listed on this slide. They're available at the americangeosciences.org/NRCS, which Carla will put in the chat shortly. And today I'm going to go through some of the resources specifically related to Web Soil Survey. But before I do that, I do want to take a minute to point out, since you are at this webinar, I assume you're interested in soil science a little bit. AGI and NRCS are hosting a workshop for educators in June in Wisconsin. We have 2 spots available still, so if you're interested, take a look at the flyer, which Carla will also put in the chat shortly. And then please reach out to me today or tomorrow. We're finalizing our list of attendees next week. So again, if you're available and interested, let me know. So now let's focus on one of NRCS's data platforms, which is Web Soil Survey. It houses soil data from about 95% of the nation, with the goal of having 100% in the next couple of years. It's an amazing resource that was first developed for land users, but it can actually be developed and used by anyone. Given the importance of including data in science education, we at AGI have focused on creating educational materials around Web Soil Survey to include its use in science teaching, because it is a little tricky to use if you're not familiar with the platform, because there's so much data. So there's so much information in Web Soil Survey that it can be overwhelming to those not familiar with it. On the screen are just a select few of the data that's available through the platform. And these are some of the data that I've pulled that I think are more relevant to K-12 educational standards that you could share and explore with any of your students. And there are many other data interpretations that are available on the platform. So let's take a minute to look at some data that we've incorporated into one of the lessons we've made. So first thing I want you to do, and if you don't mind pulling up the chat and typing in some things that you notice on these soil maps, whether it's just observational, but also maybe what do you think these maps might be showing? So I'll give you guys 1 minute to answer that. What do you notice, and what might these maps be showing? So Joe's noticing the variability, and it might be showing the variability of soil composition. The map on the left shows a lot more differences within the data. And it might be a hint to tell you that the map on the left is an area topography or water tables. Great, Amy. Map on the left is in DeKalb, Illinois, which is about an hour west of Chicago. And the map on the right is of the western suburbs of Chicago, which is about 20 minutes west of Chicago. So we definitely see some differences in the soil, and these maps are showing the organic matter depletion, which indicates the extent to which soils could be depleted. This interpretation takes into account annual temperature, availability of water, soil texture, and topography. So we can maybe start to think about why those differences might exist. And so when you're looking at the amount of organic matter or organic matter depletion, there are some stark differences between what we typically refer to as like farmland or more agricultural land near a town, as on the left, versus on the right, more suburban, flat land, lots of streets, lots of schools, lots of houses, lots of roads. So you can already see those differences showing up in these soil maps. And so one of the lessons that we've created is examining the organic soil matter as it relates to areas around urban areas, suburbs, and more agricultural areas. And there are many other lessons that we've created that also include soil data. Many of these activities also include hands-on components to really engage students with the concepts and the phenomena, such as the availability about communities on permafrost, soil erosion, and then soil texture as well. And then they also incorporate soil data that's already pulled and formatted for use in the classroom. And so it's kind of an easier way to go about including soil data because it's already formatted. Again, just have your students analyze it and make some observations and make some analyses about the data as it relates to the lesson. A step up or a more involved way to include soil data would be finding and pulling your own data and maps. To help facilitate this process, we at AGI have created educator guides for using Web Soil Survey, because as I mentioned, it can be a little tricky to kind of get acclimated to. The introductory guide points people to the platform and shows them how to make and print the maps and make them accessible for students. And then the climate dynamics guide explores content related to soil and climate, such as carbon sequestration. And the guide advises users on which data are beneficial to examine, how to find that data in the application, and then offers ideas for classroom activities, which I'll share on the next slide. Right now, drafts of those two guides in bold are available online at the AGI/NRCS website, and final versions will be made available in the coming months. And then the other three guides are currently in process. So here's an example of one of those activities that we ask students to do in the climate dynamics guide. They'll actually sign on to Web Soil Survey. They'll be given a location and they'll analyze different available Web Soil Survey data interpretations to be able to make claims and to compare the different locations and their connections between a specific natural hazard, such as drought and wildfires and landslides, erosion, things such as that. And again, more details are provided in the guide. So with most of our time left, I want to actually let you look at the platform a little bit. And so these are kind of the main three steps. You want to define an area of interest. You can explore the data, whether that's a soil map of actual composition or different data interpretations. And then you can get the data by adding it to a shopping cart for free, or you can just print the map itself. And so I'll kind of go through that really quickly. Has anyone been on Web Soil Survey or utilized it before? I see one hand. I'm sure people who maybe or don't have their cameras on have seen it. So most people we've worked with have not been on it before. Like I said, it looks a little intimidating, but we have instructions to make it as user friendly. Can you guys see the Web Soil Survey on my screen right now? Great. So this is the homepage. There's a lot of information, background about Web Soil Survey. If you scroll down, there's 4 basic steps that you're walked through. There's tips and shortcuts on here, and then also help. So if you need any help, again, feel free to reach out to me or visit the website. I'm going to click this green Start Web Soil Survey, and it brings me up the actual platform. So I see that I can look at any of the lower 48 states. Also up here, I can go to Alaska. I can look at soil in Hawaii. I can look at Puerto Rico. It jumps me around any of the different areas where NRCS has soil data. I'm going to go back to the lower 48. To find my area of interest, I need to select an area I'm interested in. I'm not just going to look at the soil map of the whole country. I'm going to click address, but I could select any of these ways to find a location. So because we're looking at DeKalb, Illinois earlier, I'm just going to type that in. and I jump right to DeKalb, Illinois. You can kind of see it here. I can use the magnifying glass to zoom in. I click on the magnifying glass and I click on the selection of where I want to zoom in. I'm going to click on the hand. I can move around to find my area of interest. One of the favorite things to do is right when you sign in, go to your house, look at the soil in your backyard, what you're able to do on this platform. To select my area of interest that I want to analyze, I'm going to go to one of these two AOI boxes. This one is defined in AOI by a rectangle. This is a polygon, so I can make different shapes like a circle or any shape basically where I can click with my mouse. For ease, I'm just going to pick the rectangle and I'm going to highlight an area. So now I've selected my area of interest. And you can see by this blue area here, that's what I'm going to be analyzing. I can go to the soil map, which tells me a whole lot of information that I'm typically not going to use with students because that's a little bit too complex and we don't have the background or the use really to look at all these different types. So I'm just going to jump over here to the Soil Data Explorer. And I have different tabs that are available. If I go to Intro to Soils, it's a lot of background information that you can search through, really helpful. For today, again, I'm going to stick with looking for that organic matter depletion. I know that from the guide and the instructions I have online, that that's going to be found in soil health, and I have all these other options of what I want to look at as well. So I'm going to click on the interpretation I'm most interested in, which right now is organic matter depletion. I can view a description, which tells me all the background about this interpretation. So what does this actually entail? What goes into figuring out the rating for organic matter depletion and other background information. I'm going to click view rating. And then the map pops up with the organic soil map. And you can kind of see that we looked at this a little bit earlier. If I want to print this for students to use, I can go up to the printable version. And I can type in a subtitle and I can click view. And then a new tab pops up with that map ready to share. And it includes the key for what this means. It includes the scale bars, the location. It includes the data in a table form. So there's the key, and I can click some of these off, which I'll show you shortly. It includes the table for each of the different locations, which again is not as useful for educational purposes. Gives me how many acres I'm looking at, which is also in the platform, and then the description that I clicked on earlier. So a lot of information. When we've used this in classrooms, we've typically used the map. And now this is the map that includes the soil types and the numbers, which blocks a lot of the data that I care that my students look at. So I'm going to try and turn that off. So I'm going to go to my legend up here, which is kind of hidden. Click on legend. I can turn off, let's say I don't want to have the soil rating points in my legend. I don't want to have the water features. I don't want to have transportation. So I'm just left with the soil rating polygons. I can right click edit layer properties. I can turn off the labels. I can make the labels bigger if I wanted to. I can change the opacity of the map so I can see the background image a little bit better. And I can play around with those features. Okay, that looks good to me. I'm going to click OK. So you can, again, it's kind of customizable. It's not GIS or QGIS or ArcGIS, but you can play around. Students can get a handle of how they can adjust maps for their, how they want it to appear. One of the comments in the chat was looking at maybe it's related to topography. So maybe that's something you want your students to explore. So how could this relate to topography? Well, if I scroll down to my legend, I can actually turn on a topographic map. And then I can turn on and off the layers to play around with, okay, I see this circle feature here and here. Turn off the soil map and see, does that relate to topography? And then I can see that, yes, it does. There are topographic lines that are aligning with that data. And so that's why students and you can analyze different properties of soil and how it relates to the land. So this is one example of a map that you can make. Again, there are so many maps that are available on this platform. So I'm going to just show one more before our time's up. If I go to soil properties and qualities, I have all of these different categories I can click through. If I wanted to look at not the organic matter depletion, but the actual amount of organic matter, I can go to organic matter. I can, again, view the description, see what this entails, view the rating, but this specific one, you can actually give a depth range because different organizations and different land users want to know the organic matter in a specific area of the soil. Again, for student uses, I just go to surface usually, and then click view rating. once again, the rating comes up, and I can print this map. I can have students compare it to the organic matter depletion and think about what the differences are in the maps and looking at the actual quantity. Now for this map, you can see you have colors, but you have no idea what the numbers mean. Click on legend, and then we have, again, those ratings pop up here, and those are all described in the description. If I were to print this map, I go back to that tab, it's replaced this map over here with my new map, and it has all those features. So it removed the numbers, it made the map layer a little bit lighter so I can see the background a little bit more. Gives me the map legend, and then in the description it tells me about what those descriptions, what those layers are, or what those different sections are and the different colors mean. So a lot of data you can pull. Like I mentioned, it's really extensive resource, a little tricky to use sometimes possibly. And so that's why we recommend especially using the guide that we've created, because it really gives you a step-by-step direction. It tells you the interpretations that you can use. That way you're not so overwhelmed at the very beginning. Because you're here, you must be interested in soils. And so I wanted to mention one last resource, was that one of our member societies, Soil Science Society of America, or SSSA, is a wonderful resource for soil-related educational material. I'd highly recommend visiting their site, Soils for Teachers, and you can explore all the resources that are listed here and more. And with that, 10 minutes-ish is up. Thank you so much for your time, and I'd be happy to answer questions now or later in an email. And please let me know if you're interested in attending the upcoming soil science workshop for educators in June. Carla, I'll turn it back to you. Oh, and Carla, you're muted. I don't know if you are talking or not. I can't tell.
Yes, thank you. I said, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and simply ask Lauren, or you can put questions in the chat, however you would like to do it. We're open for Q&A right now. Or comments.
Yeah, I was addressing, there's a couple comments in the chat about the resource. It's a wonderful resource, but like I mentioned, when we've worked with educators in the past, sometimes it's a little overwhelming. And so as you are getting your feet wet in this resource, just again, I highly recommend taking a look at the guides, the specific interpretations, data interpretations that you most are interested in, and then kind of exploring from there, because there's a lot of information and sometimes we can get lost in it.
I just put the link to Earth Science Week also in the chat. Oops, I think I misspelled it.
Yep,
I've got an extra
it's
T in there. Shameless self-promotion, but we have a calendar activity in the Earth Science Week kit calendar this year for ESEP around land cover. So it's a wonderful, the Earth Science Week toolkit is a wonderful resource, and the calendar has a number of great activities related to many different Earth science.
In addition to that, the calendar will be available online, but the kits go out in July, August, and they also this year include a soil careers and soil science poster from NRCS. So we have a lot of different, all of our partners are in there, including ESIP, with different materials and calendar activities. And we have webinars coming out in October, one of which is related to regenerative agriculture on the Friday of our Science Week. So we have a lot of variability in what we share during our Science Week. So let me know also if you have questions or if you'd like to order a toolkit. They're free for educators. We just have to pay, or they're free for anyone. They just have to pay for shipping. Which is $9, I think, for one kit. And then every other kit after that, it's like $1 or $2. So feel free to answer those questions as well.
Lauren, did you have a direct link to the guides? I was trying to find it. I put the link to the top level, but.
Yeah, so if you go to the NRCS site at the very bottom, let me see if I can click on it. At the very bottom, that's where the web soil survey guides are. So it should, you guys still see my screen. So if I go to web soil survey guides at the bottom, here are all those lessons that I mentioned and a couple others. So web soil survey teacher guides, and then we have the introduction and the climate dynamics. And then there's also the link that I think Carla put in the chat for the web soil survey application itself. So you can click on there and you can see here what I went through in 2 minutes about selecting an area of interest. You can see the polygon activity, but all those details are laid out in this guide. And then also more getting started resources. And then the climate dynamics guide, like I mentioned, this is a draft. We have some images to add into this still that it will be developed and finalized in the coming month. It gives background on the connection between soils and climate. Also points out different parts of NGSS where you can incorporate soils, talks about SDG, specifically SDG 13, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and how soils play a crucial part in climate action. And then there are different activities. So this is a general activity you can have your students do about exploring the connection between climate and soil. And then it goes through specifically web soil survey interpretations or data related to climate change. So this section talks about carbon sequestration potential. Again, what is it? And then how does it align with NGSS? What are some sustainable development goals that align with that content as well? Gives background on organic carbon content and organic matter depletion, why that's important. Talks about exactly how to get there in web soil survey. So we can go to the Soil Data Explorer, soil properties and qualities, soil health properties. Again, some of these interpretations are a little bit hidden. So it's helpful just to have a button to click through. The guide gives you some instructions and some examples on the maps. And then as well, maybe some details about why we might want to look at organic matter in a certain area. Quick review of what it is and why it's important. And then additionally, there's some extension questions that you could talk about with your students related to that content or that concept. And then also an activity that you could have your students do. So have them in groups, look at different areas around your community, go to web soil survey, select their area of interest. And again, assuming that they would have that introductory guide available to go step by step, and then some discussion questions that you could discuss with your students. These activities are a little bit more general than the ones that I shared earlier because they are so specific to different locations. And so if I'm analyzing soil in Chicago, that's gonna be very different than if I'm analyzing soil in Flagstaff. And so these are kind of more general, but I'd be very happy to work with any of you guys if you want to make a lesson specifically for your location as well.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions, thoughts? I put the chat to the intro guide, or I put the intro guide link in the chat.
Hey.
Well, thank you again for coming, and hope to see you at additional Out2Lunch webinars. We'll send out the link. Like I said, it will probably take me a few days to get this posted, and then we'll send you out the link so that you will have both the presentation with the links and the recording.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.